She was a virgin, just 17 years old, and her own father locked her in a hotel room. The guy she met that night was a millionaire with a secret tied to her family's past. If this story caught your attention, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. Stay tuned. In the pulsating heart of New York City, where skyscrapers cut through the gray sky and the city never sleeps, stands the Remington Plaza, a five-star hotel that shines like a jewel amidst the urban chaos. It is there that, in the middle of a New York winter, Emily Collins, the only daughter of a powerful and feared businessman, is kept prisoner by her own father in one of the penthouse suites, away from curious eyes, away from freedom, away from any chance of choice. Emily was 17 years old, raised in elite Catholic schools, shaped with rigidity and silence. She never had autonomy over her own body or her own desires. Her father, Richard Collins, an agribusiness magnate and influential politician, had been preparing her for years to become a bargaining chip, a perfect bride to seal political and business alliances. But during the hotel's charity ball, filled with golden masks and whispered intrigues among New York's elite, Emily dances with a mysterious man dressed in black, with eyes like night storms and a voice that penetrates to her bones. A man who seems to truly see her for the first time in her life. This man is Alexander Remington, a 52-year-old Italian-American businessman, the secret owner of a chain of luxury hotels scattered throughout the country. Cold in the eyes of the world, calculating in business and surrounded by scandals hushed up by the press, he maintains a mystery around himself as thick as the cognac he savors alone in his office. But there is something about Emily, in her wild eyes contained for so long, in her thirst for life repressed by years of rigid education, that awakens in him a warmth he believed forever dead. What begins as a casual dance becomes an obsessive memory for both. The next morning, Richard discovers through his informants who the masked man was who dared to touch his daughter. Realizing that Emily was touched by someone he considers dangerous and unsuitable for his aristocratic lineage, he locks her in the presidential suite. Discreet security guards watch the door, phone disconnected, windows with special locks. Daughter imprisoned like a precious relic, threatened with desecration. What her father ignores is that Alexander Remington is the true owner of the Remington Plaza, and that his involvement with Emily is not just carnal desire. It is something much deeper and more dangerous. Alexander discovers the imprisonment through his security cameras, and his reaction is silent but devastating. Not because of the wounded pride of a powerful man, but because of an old pain he has carried for 20 years. He lived a secret and forbidden romance with Emily's mother, Sophia, a sensitive and passionate artist who died mysteriously a few months after being forcibly married to Richard. Emily, with her skin golden from the sun of the Hamptons and her voice sweet as wild honey, is the perfect mirror of Sophia. And perhaps, just perhaps, she is more than a simple physical resemblance. Perhaps she is his true daughter. This suspicion implodes all the rationality that Alexander has built over the years. He begins to investigate the past with the fury of a man who lost everything once and does not intend to lose again. He accesses private medical files, bribes former employees of the hospital where Emily was born, hires the best private detectives in the country. Amid torn documents and adulterated records, he finds hidden in a forgotten safe in the Hotel Sophia's intimate diary, where she describes between tear-stained pages the forbidden love she lived with Alexander, the deep hatred she felt for Richard, and especially the constant fear she carried in her chest, the fear that her daughter would one day be taken from her forever. While Alexander confronts the ghosts of his past, scrutinizing each page of Sophia's diary like a desperate man, Emily discovers the dark secrets of the present. With the help of Dolores, a mute housekeeper who has worked for decades behind the scenes at the hotel and who knew Sophia, she finds a secret passage that connects the suites through an old ventilation duct system built when the building housed government offices during the Vietnam War. On silent nights, when New York falls asleep under the cloak of dawn, Emily escapes through false mirrors and loose boards, traversing forgotten corridors until she finds Alexander hidden in the old observatory of the hotel on the top floor, where the city lights stretch infinitely like terrestrial stars. There, among dusty telescopes and old books on astronomy, the two touch each other with words loaded with meaning, wound each other with glances that cut to the soul and heal little by little with each other's intense presence. His hands tremble when they brush her skin, as if touching sacred porcelain that might break at any moment. Her eyes burn when they meet his, two flames that recognize and fear each other simultaneously. They talk about everything and nothing, about the books she read hidden from her father, about the trips he made alone to the most remote corners of America, about the dreams she never dared to confess, and about the scars he carries invisibly on his chest. They don't yet know if they are lovers destined by fate or main characters in an announced tragedy. Alexander tells her about his humble childhood in a Brooklyn tenement, about how he built his empire from nothing, selling homemade chocolates on Coney Island before getting his first job as a waiter in a hotel in Manhattan. Emily listens fascinated, discovering a completely different world from hers, where people fight for their daily bread and achieve their dreams with blood and sweat. She talks about her golden prison, about the forced piano lessons, about the endless dinners with corrupt politicians and businessmen who looked at her as if she were a product for sale. During these intimate conversations under the dim light of the candles that Alexander ceremoniously lights every night, they grow dangerously close. He doesn't touch her beyond a soft kiss on the lips, but the intensity between them is palpable, electric, capable of igniting the air around them. Emily had never felt anything like it, had never experienced the sensation of being desired for who she really is, not for the surname she carries or for the inheritance she represents. But not everyone watches in silence this forbidden romance that blooms in the shadows. Then appears Victoria Collins, Emily's stepmother, a former Miami model of 40, as beautiful as a mermaid and as cunning as a serpent. She met Alexander 5 years ago at a party in the Hamptons when she was still married to her second husband, an oil businessman. Alexander coldly rejected her at the time, preferring to remain faithful to Sophia's memory, and since then, Victoria has nurtured a veiled obsession with him, a desire for possession that grows like a weed in her heart. Victoria has always hated Emily, not only out of jealousy of the love that Richard devotes to his daughter, but mainly because she saw in Emily the constant reflection of Sophia, the woman Richard never managed to completely forget. Upon realizing through the hotel's security cameras that something is happening between Emily and Alexander, she decides to act with the precision of an experienced predator. She reveals to Richard not only that Emily is escaping every night, but that she is meeting exactly with the man he most fears and despises in New York's elite. Richard's reaction is explosive and calculated at the same time. He calls an emergency meeting with Victoria and his main advisors, including the family's head of personal security. The decision is drastic. Emily will be immediately sent to a boarding school in Geneva, Switzerland, where German nuns are known for their military discipline, and where no American law or powerful man can touch her. It's a prison disguised as education, a golden exile that will last until she completely forgets Alexander and accepts the arranged marriage that her father is already negotiating with a traditional family of ranchers from Montana. Alexander departs on an urgent trip to Brooklyn, his hometown, ostensibly to resolve business related to the acquisition of a new resort on Long Island, but actually to find definitive proof about Emily's paternity. He needs to locate the midwife who helped with the birth, the doctors who accompanied Sophia during the pregnancy, any trace that might confirm his deepest suspicions. Meanwhile, Emily is kept under constant surveillance, drugged with mild sedatives, mixed in her food and threatened with psychiatric hospitalization if she tries to escape again. Victoria takes complete control of the situation with the efficiency of a general commanding a war. She fires Dolores without notice, alleging non-existent thefts, cuts off all of Emily's potential allies within the hotel, and spreads carefully planted rumors about a supposedly sick relationship between stepfather and stepdaughter. The scandal begins to circulate discreetly in the social circles of New York's elite, where gossip travels faster than newspaper news. Emily feels completely isolated for the first time in her life, without Dolores, without the nighttime escapes, without Alexander's reassuring presence. She begins to question her own sanity. The sedatives leave her mind foggy during the day, but at night, when the effect diminishes, she writes desperate letters to Alexander on pieces of toilet paper using an eyebrow pencil that she hides inside her makeup case. Letters she never manages to send, but that keep her connected to her own humanity. In Brooklyn, Alexander dives into the past like an obsessed archaeologist. He visits the neighborhood where he grew up, talks to old neighbors, bribes employees of registries and hospitals. The city receives him with the humid heat of summer and the memories of a childhood he would prefer to forget. His mother died when he was 15, victim of pneumonia that could have been treated if she had had money for private doctors. It was this pain that shaped him, that transformed him into a man capable of anything to protect those he loves. In the medical archive of Mercy Hospital, he finally finds what he was looking for. Among yellowed documents, he discovers that Sophia had paternity tests done during the pregnancy, tests that were later adulterated by Richard's order. The original results, hidden in a sealed folder, reveal an even more shocking truth. Emily is neither Alexander's nor Richard's daughter. Her true father was Michael Davis, a young artist of humble origin, black, son of a soul food chef from Harlem and a respected jazz musician in all of New York. The discovery hits Alexander like a punch to the stomach. Sophia had lied to everyone, including him. The romance they lived was real, intense, transformative, but Emily was the fruit of another love, perhaps even more forbidden at the time. Michael died in a suspicious traffic accident a few days before Sophia's forced marriage to Richard, an accident that Alexander now suspects was planned by Sophia's own father-in-law, a retired army colonel with dangerous connections in the political underworld. Sophia got married carrying 3 deadly secrets. She loved Alexander, hated Richard, and was expecting the child of a man that society would never accept as the son-in-law of a traditional New York family. The pressure must have been unbearable. Alexander now understands why she killed herself when Emily was only 3 years old, leaving a letter that was never found and that everyone believed had been destroyed in a deliberate fire in the library of the Collins mansion. Back in New York, Alexander finds a city in uproar. Victoria has managed to convince Richard to accelerate Emily's marriage plans and is already hastily organizing an engagement ceremony with Anthony Rossi, heir to a traditional family of Italian-American industrialists from Chicago. The 25-year-old young man is known for his domestic violence disguised as romantic jealousy and for his addictions to cocaine and gambling, but his family has an estimated fortune in billions of dollars and political influence that extends to Washington. Emily discovers the plans through a conversation she overhears by chance between Victoria and the event organizer. The revelation awakens her from her lethargic state like an electric shock. She realizes she needs to act quickly, before it's too late. Using the few jewels she possesses, she manages to bribe a new hotel waiter to deliver a desperate message to Alexander. "They're going to force me to marry tomorrow. If you truly love me, save me. If you can't, forgive me and forget me forever. Emily." The message reaches Alexander exactly at the moment when he is reading Sophia's original letter, finally found among Michael Davis's personal belongings, kept by his sister all these years. In the letter, Sophia reveals the whole truth about Emily, about Michael, about the impossible love she lived, and about the constant fear that her daughter would one day discover her origins and be rejected by the society that raised her. Sophia's letter trembles in Alexander's hands like a leaf in the wind. Each word is a stab, each revelation a scar that opens again. "My dear Alexander," the letter began, "if you are reading this, it means that our Emily has grown up and perhaps has found you, as I always dreamed would happen. She is not your biological daughter, but she was born of the same impossible love that united us. Michael was everything I should reject according to my family. Poor, black artist, dreamer, but he loved me with a purity that I never knew. Emily carries in her veins the blood of a free man, of an artist who painted life as it should be, not as society demands it to be." Alexander closes his eyes and feels the weight of 20 years of lies crumbling on his shoulders. Sophia continued, "Richard must never discover the truth. He would kill Emily if he knew she is Michael's daughter. I promised Michael in the hospital before he died that our daughter would grow up knowing who she really is. That's why I leave this letter. That's why I choose to depart. I can no longer pretend to love a man who ordered the father of my daughter to be killed. Take care, my loves. You deserve each other." Alexander's cell phone rings at that exact moment, bringing him back to the cruel reality. It's one of his informants inside the Remington Plaza. The man's voice is nervous, hurried. "Mr. Remington, they've moved Emily to the hotel chapel. The engagement ceremony has been brought forward to tonight. They have armed guards at all exits. The bride seems drugged. She can barely stand on her own." Alexander wastes no time. He calls his most influential lawyers, investigative journalists, who owe him favors, federal agents he has bought over the years building his empire. If Richard wants war, he'll have war. But this time it won't be behind the scenes. It will be under the relentless spotlights of the American media. Meanwhile, at the hotel, Emily is prepared for her own funeral disguised as a party. Victoria personally supervises every detail. The snow-white dress imported directly from Milan, the Collins family jewels that belong to Emily's grandmother, the heavy makeup that hides the dark circles and sickly pallor caused by the sedatives. Emily moves like an articulated doll, obedient but empty. Her eyes have lost the wild sparkle that so fascinated Alexander. Anthony Rossi arrives at the hotel driving a red Ferrari, followed by an entourage of Playboy friends and private security. He is exactly what Emily imagined, handsome in an artificial way, with calculated smiles and eyes cold as marble. During the formal greeting, he squeezes her hand with excessive force, a subtle demonstration that she will be his property in a few minutes. Emily feels nauseous, but the medications in her system prevent any stronger reaction. The hotel chapel has been decorated with white and gold flowers, creating a fairy tale atmosphere that hides the real nightmare. Guests arrive in armored cars. Politicians, businessmen, judges, all the corrupt elite that sustains the power of families like the Collins. They talk about business while drinking French champagne, treating the engagement as just another successful business transaction. Richard gives a speech to the guests with the eloquence of an experienced politician, talking about tradition, family and Christian values. No one mentions that Anthony has been arrested twice for assault against ex-girlfriends, or that his family owes fortunes to Colombian cartels. What matters is keeping up appearances and consolidating alliances that will yield billions in future contracts. Emily remains silent throughout the ceremony, like a pillar of salt. Inside, her mind desperately screams for Alexander, for her dead mother, for a father she never knew but whose blood runs in her veins. She thinks about the stories Alexander told about Brooklyn, about the vibrant colors of the paintings that Michael painted, about the freedom she never experienced, but can feel pulsing in her heart like an ancestral drum. The moment of the official toast is approaching. Anthony raises the crystal glass and begins a speech about conquering his bride like a war trophy. His words are interrupted by the sound of sirens in the street. Someone shouts from outside. Camera flashes begin to flash through the chapel windows like a storm of lightning. Victoria turns pale when she sees a crowd of journalists surrounding the hotel, shouting questions about corruption, money laundering, and commissioned murders. Alexander did not come alone. He brought with him federal prosecutors, civil police delegates, investigative reporters, and criminal lawyers. They invade the hotel like an army of justice, armed with search and seizure warrants, compromising recordings, and documents that prove decades of crimes committed by the Collins family. The engagement party transforms into a police operation broadcast live, transmitted throughout the United States by the main television channels. The moment is epic and devastating. Emily, still dazed by the medications, sees Alexander entering the chapel like a modern gladiator, followed by a crowd of people she doesn't recognize, but who are clearly there to save her. He walks to her with determined steps, ignoring Richard's shouts and Victoria's hysterical protests, and extends his hand in her direction. "She was never yours. declares Alexander, with a voice that cuts through the silence like a sharp blade. His words echo through the decorated chapel, penetrating each corner where the powerful hid behind social masks. Emily looks at him through the fog of the sedatives, and for the first time in days, feels her heart beat with real strength. It's as if she were awakening from a long and suffocating nightmare. Richard explodes in fury, shouting orders to his security guards, but the men hesitate when they see the television cameras capturing every movement, every word. The FBI operation is being commanded by Agent Robert Farias, an upright man who for years had been investigating the connections between the Collins family and organized crime. Alexander provided the missing evidence: bank accounts in tax havens, recordings of compromising conversations, documents linking Richard to Michael Davis's murder 20 years ago. Anthony tries to maintain the pose of an indignant fiancé, but his mask slips when the agents mention his own crimes: drug trafficking, money laundering through fake artworks, documented assaults against women. He quickly understands that he needs to save his own skin and abandons Emily without a word. A farewell, fleeing through the back of the hotel like the coward he always was. Victoria realizes she is losing control of the situation and makes her last desperate move. She approaches Emily with a venomous smile and whispers in her ear, "You think he really loves you? Alexander only wants you because you're just like your mother. You're just a ghost from his past, a pathetic substitute for a love that died decades ago." Victoria's words hit Emily like bullets, but they also awaken in her a strength she didn't know she possessed. The sedatives are losing their effect, and with a clearer mind she finally manages to see the situation as it really is. She is not a princess being saved by a prince. She is a woman discovering that she has the right to choose her own destiny. Alexander approaches slowly, extends his hand to Emily but doesn't force her to anything. His eyes convey everything he can't say in words: that he discovered the truth about Michael, that he understands who she really is, that he loves her not as a substitute for Sophia, but as Emily, unique and irreplaceable. "I know who your real father is," he whispers just for her, "and I know that you have the right to know your own story." Emily looks around the chapel. She sees Richard being handcuffed by federal agents, Victoria being interrogated by aggressive reporters, the powerful guests fleeing through emergency exits like rats abandoning a sinking ship. For the first time in her life, she has a real choice before her. She can stay and face the scandal, or she can go with Alexander and discover who she really is away from the spotlights and hypocrisy. She takes his hand, not because she needs to be saved, but because she chooses to be free. They leave the chapel together while camera flashes explode around them like fireworks. Outside, a crowd of journalists shout questions, but Alexander had already prepared everything. A helicopter awaits them at the hotel's helipad, piloted by an ex-military man he trusts. In a matter of minutes, they are flying over New York, leaving behind the chaos and corruption. During the flight, Alexander tells Emily everything he discovered about Michael Davis. He shows photos he found, letters the young artist wrote to Sophia, drawings he made of his beloved pregnant. Emily cries when she sees for the first time the face of the father she never knew, a man with a gentle smile and bright eyes who painted colorful murals on the walls of Harlem and taught street children to draw their dreams. "He was free," Emily whispers, touching one of the photographs. "My mother loved him because he was free." "And you are free now too," responds Alexander, holding her hand with delicacy. "Free to choose who you want to be, free to honor the memory of your real parents, free to decide whether or not you want to build a life with me." The helicopter lands at a hidden farm in the Catskill Mountains, property of a discreet friend of Alexander. It's a simple place, rustic, surrounded by apple orchards and mountains that get lost in the horizon. There, away from the world's eyes, Emily begins to know herself for the first time. She removes the heavy makeup, takes off the expensive jewels, exchanges the wedding dress for simple clothes borrowed from the caretaker's wife. For the first time in years, she laughs for real. For the first time in her life, she feels at home. But freedom has its price. In the next few hours, they will discover that Richard will not easily give up his daughter, even while in jail. Victoria, even with her reputation destroyed, still keeps secrets capable of destroying everything Alexander has built. And Emily will need to decide if she is willing to fight for the love she found, or if the weight of the past will be too strong to overcome. The first days at the Catskill farm are like a dream for Emily. She wakes up to the song of cardinals, walks barefoot on the dew-damp grass, helps the caretaker's wife harvest vegetables from the garden. Her hands, previously soft as silk from never having touched real work, begin to gain small calluses that she observes with fascination. They are marks of freedom, scars of a life that finally belongs to her. Alexander observes her from afar, leaning on the porch of the main house, sipping strong coffee and smoking cigarettes he had abandoned years ago. Seeing her discovering, small everyday joys awakens in him, a tenderness he didn't know he possessed. He first fell in love with the forbidden woman, then with the daughter of the woman he loved. But now he falls in love with Emily as she really is, strong, curious, thirsty for real life. At night, they sit on the porch and talk until dawn. Emily asks 1,000 questions about Michael, about the paintings he painted, about the dreams he carried. Alexander shows on his cell phone photos he got from Michael's sister, Jasmine Davis, a 60-year-old woman who still lives in Harlem and keeps her murdered brother's works as relics. There are self-portraits of Michael, landscapes of New York in vibrant colors, and especially drawings of Sophia pregnant, radiant, free. "I want to meet my aunt," Emily declares on a starry night. "I want to see my father's paintings. I want to know how he spoke, how he laughed. I want to know my true roots." Alexander smiles and promises that as soon as the situation calms down, they will travel together to New York. But both know that the calm is temporary. The national news is full of reports about the Collins scandal. Richard has been preventively arrested, but his lawyers have already obtained a habeas corpus. Victoria has disappeared, probably taking refuge in some country without extradition. Anthony had his assets blocked by justice, but escaped to Europe before they could arrest him. The bigger problem arises when they discover that Richard has hired the best criminal law firm in the country and is moving all his political influences to recover Emily. He alleges kidnapping, false imprisonment, corruption of a minor, any crime that can stick to Alexander. Worse still, he threatens to publicly reveal that Emily is the bastard daughter of a black thug, using the structural racism of American society as a weapon against his own daughter. "He would rather destroy you than lose control over your life," Alexander explains, showing the news on his laptop. For men like Richard, family is property, not love. Emily reads the reports with a mixture of disgust and fascination. She sees her photo plastered on magazine covers as the rebel heiress, the forbidden romance of the elite, scandal in high society. Some publications paint her as an innocent victim, others as an impressionable young woman seduced by an older man. None of them show her as she really is, an adult woman making her own decisions. "I don't care what they say about me," she declares, forcefully closing the laptop. "But I won't let them use my father's memory as a weapon. Michael Davis deserves to be remembered for the artist and good man he was, not as a thug in the mouth of a scoundrel." It is at this moment that Emily makes the most courageous decision of her life. She wants to go public, tell her own version of the story, honor the memory of Michael and Sophia, definitively unmask Richard. Alexander tries to dissuade her, warning about the dangers of exposing herself so much, but Emily is determined. "You men always decide what's best for women," she says, with a firmness that surprises even herself. "My father decided who my mother should marry. You decided to save me. Now I decide I'm going to fight for my own freedom." They spend entire nights preparing the strategy. Alexander uses his media contacts to schedule an exclusive interview with the most respected investigative journalist in the country, David Carter, known for unmasking political schemes and defending social causes. The interview will be recorded at the farm itself, in a controlled environment, far from television sensationalism. While they prepare, Emily and Alexander grow closer in a more intimate way. The long conversations on the porch evolve into hand-in-hand, walks through the apple orchards, stolen kisses under the stars, timid caresses that awaken in her sensations she never experienced. He is patient, affectionate, respectful, everything that Anthony would never be. One night, after a torrential rain that left the air perfumed with the smell of wet earth, they make love for the first time. It is delicate, intense, transformative. Emily gives herself completely, not out of submission or duty, but by choice and desire. Alexander loves her, as if she were made of crystal and fire simultaneously, touching each emotional scar with the delicacy of someone who knows pain. "I love you," he whispers in her ear afterwards, while she rests in his arms. "Not as I remembered. Your mother, not as a second chance with the past. I love you, Emily, exactly as you are." "I love you too," she responds, surprised by the ease of the words. "But now I know that I don't need you to be complete. I choose to be with you because I want to, not because I need to." It is the most mature and real declaration of love that either of them has ever heard or pronounced. But the next morning, an emergency phone call changes everything. Victoria has resurfaced, and this time she brought a much more dangerous weapon than blackmail or gossip. She discovered where they are hiding and is coming personally to resolve the situation once and for all. Victoria arrives at the farm in an armored Range Rover, accompanied by 3 armed men who are clearly not conventional security guards. They are experienced mercenaries, probably ex-military who work for whoever pays better. She discovered the location by bribing an airport employee who saw Alexander's helicopter landing in the region days before. The woman who always depended on beauty and manipulation now shows her sharpest claws. Alexander receives the alert from his lookouts when the cars are still 5 kilometers from the property. He and Emily have minutes to decide between fleeing again or definitely confronting Victoria. Emily surprises Alexander with her decision. She wants to stay and confront her stepmother face to face. "I'm tired of running," she declares, carrying in her hand Sophia's diary that Alexander brought from Brooklyn. "It's time for Victoria to discover that I'm no longer the frightened girl she controlled." When Victoria enters the main house, her high heels echo on the wooden floor like shots. She is impeccable as always. Perfectly brushed blonde hair, flawless makeup, designer dress that cost more than the caretaker's annual salary. But her eyes reveal the madness that was always hidden behind the elegant socialite mask. She is a woman who has lost everything and has nothing more to lose. "My dear stepdaughter," she says with an icy smile, "how good to finally find you. You can't imagine the trouble it took me to locate you in this backwater." Emily is standing in the living room, wearing a simple cotton dress that the caretaker's wife lent her, her feet bare, her hair loose in the wind. She has never looked so beautiful or so strong. "What do you want, Victoria? Dad is in jail. Anthony fled. Your schemes have been discovered. It's over." Victoria laughs like a hyena. "Over? My dear naive girl, this has just begun. You think you can destroy our family, expose our secrets, humiliate our name and get away with it. Your father may be temporarily imprisoned, but he still has more power than you can imagine." Alexander enters the room, positioning himself protectively beside Emily, but she makes a gesture for him to keep his distance. This is a battle she needs to fight alone. "What family, Victoria? You killed my mother with your jealousy, helped. Dad murdered my real father, tried to sell me like cattle to a psychopath. That's not family, it's the mafia." Victoria's face contorts with pure hatred. "Your mother was a whore who lay down with any man who appeared. First, with that common black man, then with Alexander, then pretending to love your father to ensure support for the bastard she carried in her womb." "Be careful with your words," Alexander warns, taking a step forward. "Or what?" Victoria turns to him with fury. "You'll hit me? You'll kill me like you killed so many others during your climb to power? You think I don't know about your secrets? Alexander Remington, you think you built your empire just with honest work?" Emily realizes that Victoria has compromising information about Alexander, secrets he never revealed even to her. She sees the tension in his face, the way his fists involuntarily close. But instead of feeling betrayed or frightened, Emily feels a strange calm. Everyone has dark pasts, including her, who lived 20 years pretending to be who she was not. I don't care what Alexander did before he met me, Emily declares, surprising both. What matters is who he chose to be when he loved me, unlike you who always chose the cruelest path. Victoria takes a revolver from her Hermes bag, pointing directly at Emily. You're going to come back with me now, stupid girl. You're going to marry Anthony. You're going to fulfill your role in the family, and you're going to forget this ridiculous romantic fantasy. No, Emily responds simply without moving. No, Victoria laughs hysterically. You think you have a choice? I killed your mother. I can kill you too. A domestic accident, a family tragedy. Who will question it? The confession hits Emily like lightning. You killed my mother. Of course I killed her. That idiot was about to tell you everything about your real father. She imagined that at 3 years old, you would be old enough to keep secrets. I put rat poison in her chamomile tea and watched her die in agony, alternately calling out the names of Michael and Alexander. Alexander advances toward Victoria, but she turns the gun in his direction. Don't even think about it. My men outside have orders to shoot anyone who leaves this house without my authorization. Emily feels a supernatural calm taking over her body. It's as if Sophia and Michael were there with her, guiding her steps, giving her the courage she needs. She walks slowly toward Victoria, completely ignoring the gun pointed at her chest. Do you know what else my mother wrote in the diary? Emily asks, taking the small notebook from her pocket. She wrote that one day I would discover who I really am, and that when that happened I would be stronger than all the monsters who tried to destroy me. Stop where you are or I'll shoot, Victoria screams, but her voice is trembling. Emily continues walking. She also wrote that you were an empty woman, without love, without soul, condemned to die alone and forgotten. Look at yourself now. Victoria, look at what you've become. Victoria pulls the trigger, but Alexander throws himself in front of Emily at the last second. The shot echoes through the house like thunder. Alexander falls to the floor, blood spreading across his white shirt. Emily screams his name and kneels beside him, pressing her hands against the wound in his shoulder. Now you come with me or he dies, Victoria hisses, reloading the gun. But she doesn't count on the arrival of David Carter and his reporting team, who were coming for the scheduled interview and heard the shot. Nor with the federal agents who were discreetly following them, alerted by Alexander about Victoria's whereabouts. The house is surrounded in a matter of minutes, and Victoria Collins is finally arrested in flagrante for attempted murder. Alexander is taken by helicopter to Memorial Hospital in Albany, the best in the region. The bullet went through his right shoulder without hitting vital organs, but he lost a lot of blood and needs immediate surgery. Emily remains by his side throughout the operation, holding his hand even when the doctors try to push her away. It's the first time she faces the real possibility of losing someone she loves by her own choice, not by imposition of destiny. Don't die, she whispers in his unconscious ear. Not after everything we've been through. Not when I've finally found someone who loves me for what I am, not for what I represent. The surgery lasts 4 hours. During this time, Emily gives her first interview to David Carter right there in E. The hospital corridor, still in clothes stained with blood, her eyes red from so much crying. She tells everything, about Michael Davis, about her mother's murder, about Richard and Victoria's crimes, about the love she found with Alexander. It's a raw, honest, devastating interview. Why did you decide to speak now? David asks, carefully holding the microphone. Because I'm tired of living lies created by others, Emily responds, her voice firm despite the tears. My mother died keeping secrets. My father was murdered for loving a woman above his social condition. I was almost sold as property to maintain appearances. Enough. America needs to know what happens behind the masks of the elite. The interview is broadcast live by the main channels in the country and generates an earthquake on social media. Justice for Emily becomes a national trending topic. Feminist movements embrace her cause. Black artists honor Michael Davis's memory. Public opinion turns definitively against Richard and Victoria. Alexander wakes up the next day, confused but conscious. The first thing he sees is Emily sleeping awkwardly in the chair next to his bed, still wearing the same blood-stained cotton dress She looks like an exhausted warrior after the battle. He smiles and touches her face delicately, waking her up. "Are you okay?" are his first words. "I should be asking you that," she responds, kissing his forehead. "You almost died because of me." "I would die 1,000 times for you," he whispers, "but I prefer to live a whole life by your side." In the following days, while Alexander recovers, Emily takes the reins of her own life definitively. She hires her own lawyers, files actions for moral damages against the family that raised her, and more importantly, decides to look for her true roots in New York. Jasmine Davis, Michael's sister, travels from Harlem to meet her niece. She is a 60-year-old woman, deep black skin, grey hair braided with colorful beads, hands marked by work, but eyes sweet as honey. She brings with her a suitcase full of treasures: Michael's paintings, family photographs, letters he wrote but never sent, drawings he made dreaming of the daughter he never knew. "You're just like him in the eyes," Jasmine says, touching Emily's face with tenderness. Michael had that same thirst for life, that same courage to face the world when necessary. Emily cries when she sees her father's self-portraits, the vibrant landscapes he painted, the detailed drawings of her mother pregnant. There is an entire series of watercolors that Michael made, imagining what his daughter would be like. Emily as a baby, Emily as a child, Emily as a teenager, all with the same determined eyes that she possesses in real life, as if he had foreseen who she would become. "He knew he would die young," Jasmine explains, leafing through a sketchbook. "Michael always said that men like him were not allowed to love women like Sophia for very long, but he didn't regret it. He said that some loves are worth a whole lifetime, even if that life is short." Emily decides that she wants to know New York, wants to walk the streets where her father grew up, wants to see the murals he painted in Harlem, wants to understand her true origins. Alexander, still recovering but determined to accompany her, organizes the trip as soon as he receives medical clearance. Meanwhile, the legal siege closes around Richard. Without Victoria to articulate his defense, and with her confessions recorded by reporters, he has no way to deny his involvement in Michael's murder. Federal prosecutors discover a network of corruption that extends for decades, involving high-ranking politicians, bought judges, unscrupulous businessmen. Anthony is arrested in Switzerland and extradited to the United States after ex-girlfriends gain courage to denounce the assaults they suffered. His family tries to buy silence, but the American feminist movement is attentive and does not allow justice to be bought once again. American society divides between those who support Emily and those who see her as a traitor to her own class. Some women's magazines transform her into a symbol of empowerment. Other conservative publications attack her as an impressionable young woman who destroyed a traditional family on a whim. Emily is not shaken by the criticism. For the first time in her life, she knows the real freedom of being judged for her own choices, not for others' expectations. It is liberating and frightening at the same time. "Do you regret anything?" Alexander asks one afternoon as they walk through the hospital gardens. "I only regret having taken so long to discover who I really am," she responds, intertwining her fingers with his. "And you? Do you regret having gotten involved with a woman who brought so many problems to your life?" Alexander stops walking and kisses her softly. "Emily, you didn't bring problems to my life. You brought life to my life. For the first time in 52 years, I wake up happy to be alive." They know that there are still battles ahead, that society does not easily forgive those who challenge its invisible rules, that their love will always be questioned by others. But they also know that they have found something rare and precious, a love based on truth, not convenience, a love that strengthens them instead of diminishing them. New York receives Emily like a daughter who finally returns home. Harlem's warm atmosphere embraces her skin. The smell of soul food awakens her senses. The sound of jazz echoes in her chest like the beats of an ancestral heart that she never knew she possessed. Jasmine takes her through the streets of Harlem, showing every corner where Michael left his mark. Colorful murals that have resisted decades of rain and sun, discreet drawings on the walls of historic buildings, graffiti that told the story of the oppressed with vibrant colors. "This is where your father painted every Sunday," Jasmine explains, standing in front of a wall where you can still see the vestiges of a mural representing black children playing in the park. "He said that art should be on the street, not locked up in museums for the rich to see. He said that beauty was everyone's right, especially those who needed hope the most." Emily touches the wall with reverence, feeling a deep connection with the man she never knew but whose blood runs in her veins. Alexander remains discreetly in the background, respecting this intimate moment between Emily and her origins. He understands that this trip is not about them as a couple. It is about Emily discovering who she really is. In Jasmine's simple house in Harlem, Emily finds the improvised studio where Michael created his works. It is a small room, with a window that gives onto a backyard where fig and peach trees grow. The walls are full of unfinished canvases, brushes dried by time, tubes of paint that were never opened again. It's like a sanctuary preserved for 20 years, waiting for someone to come honor his memory. He was painting this when he died. Jasmine shows a canvas covered by a white cloth. When she removes it, Emily sees an incredible portrait of a pregnant woman, radiant, with one hand on her belly and the other extended as if offering something to the world. It's Sophia, but it's also herself, as if Michael had painted the future he never lived to see. Emily can't contain her tears. "It's beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. He called it hope," Jasmine explains. "He said that you would be his hope, that even without being able to raise you, his love for Sophia would generate a person capable of changing the world." That night, Emily and Alexander walk through Harlem, eat soul food at a restaurant where tourists don't, go listen to live music in a bar where Michael used to play saxophone. Emily wears a colorful dress she bought in a local store, her hair loose in the salty wind that comes from the Hudson. She has never felt so beautiful, so complete, so herself. "I want to stay here for a while," she declares as they watch the sunset over the city skyline. "I want to learn about my culture, about my history, about who I am when I'm not running from anyone." Alexander smiles and kisses her forehead. "Then we'll stay. I can run my businesses from anywhere, and you need this time to find yourself." They bow. Rent a brownstone in Harlem, a 19th century house with original woodwork and windows that open to the street. Emily enrolls in an art course at New York University, begins to learn about the history of African American art, about the masters her father admired. Her first paintings are exploratory, insecure, but loaded with emotion. Alexander, in turn, uses his influence and resources to create a foundation in Michael Davis's name, offering scholarships to young artists from underprivileged communities. It is his way of honoring the memory of the man who loved the woman he also loved, of transforming tragedy into hope. The months in New York are transformative for both. Emily discovers an inner strength she didn't know she possessed, a connection with her roots that makes her feel complete for the first time. Alexander learns to be happy in a simple way, without excessive luxuries, finding pleasure in small things like having breakfast in a neighborhood bakery or watching Emily paint concentrated in her small studio. They make love with a new intensity, fueled not only by passion, but by the deep knowledge they have developed of each other. Emily is no longer the frightened young woman he saved from a forced marriage. She is a woman who chose to stay with him after discovering who she really is. Alexander is no longer the powerful man who protected her from the world. He is the companion she chooses to share her journey of self-discovery with. News from the EU outside world reaches them through the internet and newspapers. Richard was sentenced to 20 years in prison for qualified homicide, criminal organization, and corruption. Victoria received 15 years for homicide and attempted homicide. Anthony was extradited and awaits trial for multiple charges. The Collins family has completely lost its political and social influence. Emily could claim her inheritance through the courts, but decides to renounce everything that comes from Richard's dirty money. "I don't want anything that has been built on blood and suffering," she declares when lawyers seek her out. Instead, she and Alexander decide to use his resources to continue expanding the Michael Davis Foundation, creating art schools in underprivileged communities not only in New York, but throughout the United States. Emily becomes the artistic director of the foundation, traveling around the country meeting young talents who, like her father, have much to offer to the world, but few opportunities. "You know we can never go back to that life before," Alexander says one night as they watch the stars from the terrace of the brownstone. "I wouldn't want to go back even if I could," Emily responds, nestling in his arms. "I prefer to be Emily Davis, daughter of Michael and Sophia, director of a foundation, painter in my spare time, woman who chooses her own destiny, than to be Emily Collins, heiress to an empire built on lies." They know they have built something real, lasting, based on true love and conscious choices. It's not a fairy tale where the princess is saved by the prince. It's a real story where two people hurt by the past choose to heal together, creating a better future, not only for them, but for those who need hope. 2 years later, Emily Davis is standing on the terrace of the Museum of Modern Art in Harlem, watching the crowd that gathers for the inauguration of the first national exhibition, Michael Davis, Art, Resistance and Love. She wears a turquoise blue dress that she painted herself with motifs inspired by her father's works, her curly hair loose in the wind that comes from the Hudson, a serene smile on her face, tanned by the New York sun. At 21, she carries a maturity that only those who have faced real storms can develop. Alexander approaches from behind, placing his hands on her waist, with the familiarity of someone who knows every curve, every scar, every dream of the beloved woman. He has also changed in these 2 years. His hair is grayer, but his eyes shine with a happiness he didn't know before Emily. He exchanged Italian suits for white linen shirts and cotton pants, the executive style for the ease of someone who discovered that true luxury is waking up next to someone you love. "Nervous?" he asks, softly kissing her neck. "Emotional," she corrects, turning to kiss him. "My father will finally receive the recognition he deserved. Children from all over America will know his story, will know that it's possible to be an artist even coming from where he came from." The exhibition is an absolute success. Renowned art critics praise the originality and strength of Michael's works. University students line up to see the paintings that portray American reality with vibrant colors and raw truth. More importantly, young people from the peripheries see themselves represented in the exhibited art, discover that their stories also deserve to be contained in canvases, that their dreams are also valid. Jasmine walks through the exhibition like a queen, proud to finally see her brother receiving the deserved tribute. She wears a colorful African dress and a golden turban, carries on her chest a brooch with a photo of Michael when he was young. At 62, she has become one of the main collaborators of the Michael Davis Foundation, traveling around the country, identifying young talents in communities forgotten by the government. "Michael would be proud," she whispers to Emily during the opening speech. "He always said that art was a seed, and you made these seeds turn into a forest." Emily climbs onto the improvised stage in the museum courtyard. Before 200 people, including journalists, artists, progressive politicians, and especially young people from public schools in Harlem, she speaks publicly for the first time about her biological father without mentioning scandal or family tragedy. She talks about art as resistance, about love as revolution, about the importance of honoring our ancestors by building a better future. "Michael Davis died at 24, she says, her firm voice echoing through the speakers. "He didn't have time to see his daughter grow up. He couldn't paint all the pictures he dreamed of. He didn't live to witness the social changes he fought for. But he left a lesson that I carry with me. True love doesn't die with the person who loves. It multiplies, it spreads, it transforms into action." After the event, Emily and Alexander walk hand in hand along the Hudson River, their bare feet on the still, warm grass. The full moon illuminates the water like liquid silver. Couples date on the park benches. Musicians prepare their instruments for the night. It's an everyday scene, simple, perfect in its normality. "I have a surprise for you," Alexander says, stopping near a large oak tree. Emily smiles, used to his surprises, which in the last 2 years have included everything from romantic trips to the Adirondack Mountains to buying musical instruments for underprivileged children. But this time it's different. Alexander kneels on the grass and takes from his pocket a simple ring of white gold with a small diamond that reflects the moonlight. "Emily Davis," he says, emotional, "daughter of Michael and Sophia, woman who taught me that true love is a daily choice, not an imposed destiny. Will you marry me?" Emily is silent for a few seconds, not out of doubt but out of pure emotion. 2 tears run down her tanned face. "Alexander Remington," she responds, smiling through the tears. "Man who showed me that I can be loved for who I am, not for what I represent. Yes, I want to marry you." They get married 3 months later in a small and intimate ceremony at the Abyssinian Baptist Church in Harlem, the same church where Michael was baptized. Emily wears a simple white lace dress made by a local seamstress and carries a bouquet of wildflowers picked from Jasmine's garden. Alexander wears a white Cuban guayabera and linen pants, dispensing with any excessive formality. The party takes place in one of the squares in Harlem, with live music, soul food, breakdancing, and lots of jazz. There are no illustrious guests or social media coverage, just true friends, artists from the region, foundation employees, children from schools served by the project. It is exactly the wedding that Emily always dreamed of without knowing. Cheerful, authentic, full of real life. "Are you going to have children?" asks one of the children served by the foundation during the party. Emily and Alexander look at each other and smile. "Maybe," Emily responds, "but we already have hundreds of children spread all over America, all the young artists that the Foundation helps to grow." Years later, Emily will become one of the most respected art curators in the country, specializing in African American artists and peripheral art. Alexander will expand his business, always in an ethical way, using his hotels as cultural centers that promote local artists. Together, they will create a different empire from what existed before, based on social transformation, not exploitation. But on this wedding night, dancing barefoot in a Harlem square while jazz echoes through the dawn, they are just Emily and Alexander, 2 people who chose to build a true love on the ruins of a past that almost destroyed them. They chose freedom over security, truth over convenience, love over fear. And they discovered that sometimes, when we have the courage to break the chains that others have placed on us, we find not only freedom, but also the right person to share that freedom with forever. Their love is not a fairy tale. It's something much better. It's a real story of 2 imperfect people who